Welcome back. This is Network Africa. Members of the United Nations Security Council are going to Burundi later this week with 3 goals in mind. They're trying to break the cycle of violence and prevent ethnic attacks from erupting, and also to promote peace talks and to encourage respect for human rights. According to the France UN ambassador, the Council's second visit to the Central African nation in 9 months will demonstrate its concern about escalating violence and human rights abuses and its determination to prevent the genie of ethnic violence to go out of the bottle, as he puts it. France, the United States and Angola are leading in the 15-member council delegation that will be in Burundi come tomorrow and Friday. Let's look at some of the highlights of the Burundi crisis this week. We understand that as of January the 18th, 3 people were killed in a grenade attack. The targets were supporters of President Pierre Nkurunziza. This is indicative of the increase in tit-for-tat killings. The UN Security Council is determined to pressure President Nkurunziza into having dialogue with the opposition, and the impartial mediator to broker the peace deal will be decided later this week. Well, we're joined by the senior fellow of the Brookings Institution from Utah, Mr. John Mbaku. Mr. Mbaku, thank you very much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. Now, based on the allegations made by the United Nations in its press release as of last Friday, the crisis seems to, it currently appears as though it's based on ethnicity and not necessarily the third term of President Nkurunziza. I'd just like to know your thoughts on that.
Well, the thing is, it's difficult to talk of politics in Burundi without looking at ethnicity. And part of the reason has to do with the fact that Burundi, like most other countries in Africa, ethnicity was politicized during the colonial period. And after independence, the political elites in Burundi have manipulated ethnicity as a way to stay in power. So what has happened over the years is that most political parties in Burundi, as you can see now, are formed along ethnic lines. In fact, the ruling party in Burundi, it's the National Council for the Defense of Democracy, is basically or is primarily a Hutu-dominated political party, and the opposition party is also primarily a Tutsi-dominated political party. So ethnicity is important in the politics of the country, not necessarily because it should be, but simply because the political leaders are manipulating ethnicity in order to maintain their positions in power.
Well, Mr. Mbaku, based on some of the appeals that we hear daily from Burundi, coming from Burundians, particularly those in the capital, Bujumbura, it's starting to feel as though, or it comes across to them as though the international community isn't doing too much in addressing the situation. My question is, how can the international community strike that balance in respecting Burundi's sovereignty, but also doing what it should to stop the violence?
Well, the international community should respect national boundaries and the territorial integrity of a country. However, what we have to understand here is that once we realize that the government of a country is no longer able to maintain peace and provide opportunities for its citizens to go about their daily lives in a peaceful manner, as the case is in Burundi, where you see a lot of people being killed on a daily basis. There's a huge humanitarian problem being created. People are fleeing the country in large numbers. I think that once that situation develops, showing that the government is no longer capable of providing the security that it should for its people, I think it becomes necessary for the international community to intervene and bring about peace so that we can prevent the type of genocide that has already occurred in the country. Burundi has a very violent history, and we don't want to wait until we have genocide before the international community can intervene. So I think that what should be done right now is for the African Union to take the leadership and try to make sure that peace is brought into Burundi, and the continued violence that has already killed a lot of people is brought to an end, and the refugee problem is also brought to an end.
Mr. Mbako, I hope you'll do us the favor of joining us again on Friday to complete what you'd have to say, because this is an issue that isn't going anywhere. But thank you very much for joining us on Network Africa. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the United Nations is seeking $1.3 billion in humanitarian aid for South Sudan, where 2 in 10 of the population have been driven from their homes during 2 years of conflict. More than 10,000 people have been killed and 2.3 million displaced since the country's civil war broke out in December of 2013. Much of the fighting has been along ethnic lines, very similar to what we're seeing happening in Burundi right now between President Kiir's Dinka community and Mashar's Newer people. And on that note, we'd like to say thank you very much for watching Network Africa right here on Channels Television. It's been a pleasure. I'm Cynthia Are.